Hello, my dear students. A very warm welcome to all of you to Shri Jayendra Rank Zone. I am your friend and mentor for the subject Business Economics. In this lecture, we'll continue with Chapter 2, that is Theory of Demand and Supply. Let's move ahead now. So, this is Lecture 4. Let's continue with assumptions of marginal utility analysis. So, the first assumption in marginal utility analysis is the rationality. The consumer must be rational, and this is just an assumption that the consumers are rational. A consumer is rational and they attempts to attain maximum satisfaction from limited money income. So that means what? That consumers are calculative. They calculate cost and benefit. Cost incurred and benefits derived from a product. So basically we can say that the consumer aims at maximizing the utility from their purchases. Okay, let's continue further. The second point is the cardinal measurability of utility. The cardinal measurability of utility. So, according to the neoclassical economist, utility is a cardinal concept. That means what? That utility can be quantifiable. You can quantify utility like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, whatever. So it implies that utility can be measured in cardinal numbers, like I just shared with you. Marshall and some other economists used a psychological unit of measurement of utility, and that is called utils. I already shared it with you. Thus, a person can say that he derives a utility equals to 10 by consuming one commodity, that is commodity A, and by consuming commodity B, that person got 5 utils of utility. So comparison is possible if you can measure the utility in cardinal numbers. You can compare the utility of two different products, that from first product you get a utility of 10 utils, and from consuming another product, that is product B, you got utility of 5 utils. So the commodity which is providing more utils or more utility will be preferred. So we can say that comparison between the two products is possible. Comparison between the two products in terms of utility, in terms of utility is possible, and it would be easier for the consumer to choose one, to make choice for the consumer to make a suitable choice. Since a consumer are quantitatively express his utility, he can easily compare different commodities and express which commodity gives greater utility. So utilities from different units of a commodity can be added as well in calculating the total utility. According to this theory given by Marshall, Alfred Marshall, money is the measuring rod of utility. The amount of money which a person is prepared to pay for a unit of a good rather than go without it is a measure of the utility which he derives from that good. So supposingly if a person is ready to pay a lot of money for a particular product, so for product A or for product X, a consumer is ready to pay 1,000 rupees, and for product Y the same consumer is ready to pay 100 rupees. According to the cardinal concept of utility, according to the cardinal concept of utility, we can say that product X is having more utility as compared to product Y. I believe all of you must have understood till over here. Let's move to the third one, that is constancy of marginal utility of money. So marginal utility of money remains constant. Marginal utility of money remains constant. Now you can challenge this thought, you can challenge this assumption, but over here this has opted as an assumption because the author wants to prove something. So throughout, when the individual is spending money on a good, this assumption although is not realistic, it's not realistic. I'll quote an example and you will be able to understand that why this assumption is not realistic at all. So it has been made in order to facilitate the measurement of utility of a commodity in terms of money. If the marginal utility of money changes as income changes, the measuring rod of utility becomes unstable, and this is why they had opted it as an assumption and therefore would be inappropriate for the measurement. Students, suppose a person is having 10 lakh rupees and another person is having 100 rupees with him. Now over here it is saying that marginal utility of money remains constant. Supposingly this person earns 100 rupees more and this person also earns 100 rupees more. So you can understand the marginal utility for 100 rupees will not be more over here, but the marginal utility for this additional 100 rupees will be more over here in case of person B. Why? Because this 100 rupees is in smaller denominations as compared to 10 lakhs. So this person will receive less utility and this person will receive more utility. But the assumption is the marginal utility of money remains constant. You can take one more examples on the same line of action, that supposingly A person is having 10 lakh rupees. There is another person who is having 100 rupees with him. Now you need to spend 50 rupees. And over here you need to spend 50 rupees. Now the pain for spending 50 rupees will be more in case of person B. So he will receive more utility. But the pain will be less in case of a person who is already having 10 lakhs with him. So less utility. But for proving the theory over here, I told you that marginal utility of money remains constant. This is the assumption taken by Sir Alfred Marshall. The next is the hypothesis of independent utility. So it means that utility, whatever utility we derive from a product, is independent, and basically this theory ignores the complementary factor between the goods. I'll quote an example over here. Now generally, let's suppose that generally we consume idli with sambar. So these two are complement to each other. These are complementary goods, idli and sambar. These are two complementary goods. Now, supposingly the utility derived from idli is 100 utils and sambar is 50 utils. So we can say that the total utility is 150 utils. Now, according to this assumption, it is saying that you can combine idli with milk and just total that whatever satisfaction or whatever utils you have received from combining idli with milk. Now all of you understand that idli can't be consumed with milk because these food are not complementary to each other. Idli should be eaten with sambar. But according to this assumption, you can say that we just need to make a total of the utils that we achieve. So 100 utils plus 60 utils, and that is total utility will be 160 and total utility will be 150. Just give it a thought and read it over here. The total utility which a person gets from the whole collection of goods purchased by him is simply the sum total of separate utilities of the goods, and the theory ignores the complementaries between the goods, which is not correct, which could be challenged. Okay. Okay, so our next concept is the law of diminishing marginal utility. Let us try and understand the law of diminishing marginal utility. So basically this concept is given by Sir Alfred Marshall. This law states that the law states that as the amount consumed of a commodity increases, the total utility derived from the consumer from the additional units, that is the marginal unit, goes on diminishing. So as and when we will be consuming more units of a commodity, of the same commodity, the total utility will be there, but the marginal utility will be keep on diminishing. Fine. So write along with me. The law states that as the amount consumed of a commodity increases, the utility fetched or derived by the consumer from the additional units that is marginal utility goes on decreasing. The additional benefit a person derives from a given increase in his stock of a thing diminishes with every increase in the stock that he already has. In the stock that he already has. Okay, so let's begin now. So one of the important law under marginal utility analysis is law of diminishing marginal utility. The law of diminishing marginal utility is based on an important fact that while the total wants of a person is virtually unlimited, but each single want is satiable. That is, each want is capable of being satisfied. Capable of being satisfied. So since each want is satiable, as a consumer consumes more and more units of a good, the intensity of his wants goes on decreasing. So the way he wanted to consume the very first unit is not the same way he will be able to consume the second unit. So the intensity has come down, the utility has come down, and because utility is a subjective concept, so you can understand, as a point is reached where the consumer is no longer wants it because he already have a lot of the same product or same thing. Thus the greater the amount of good a consumer has, the less additional unit is worth to him or her. Is it clear till over here? So Marshall, who was the exponent of the marginal utility analysis, stated that an additional benefit that a person derives from a given increase in the stock of a thing diminishes with every increase in the stock that he already has. In other words, as a consumer increases the consumption of any one commodity, keeping constant the consumption of all other commodities, the marginal utility of a variable commodity must eventually decline because he has achieved the satisfaction level. Because he has achieved some satisfaction by consuming the previous units of same goods. It's human nature. So as we have a lot of things again and again, the utility will decline in future. Okay. So just see it over here. The Lord describes a very fundamental tendency of human nature. In simple words, it says that a consumer takes more unit of a good, the extra satisfaction that he derives from an extra unit of a good goes on falling. It is to be noted over here that the marginal utility and not the total utility will decline. So marginal utility will fall, not the total utility will fall over here with the increase in consumption of a good. Students, let's see this table one, that is total and marginal utility schedule. Okay, so the quantity of chocolate bar consumed is shown over here, and the total utility that derived from the consumption of chocolate bar is listed over here, and marginal utility is also shown over here. So total the consumption pattern of 11 chocolates is given over here. So when the consumer has consumed first chocolate, because the intensity of demand was very much, the need was very high, so in toto the total utility he has achieved is 30 utils. All of you know that utility can be measured in utils, and marginal utility is also 30, that is 30 minus 0. When the consumer consumed the second unit of chocolate, he achieved the total utility is 50. That means 50 minus 30, the marginal utility would be 20. As you can see, when he consumes one more additional unit of chocolate, the total utility is 65 and the consumer attained 15 marginal utility. So the change in marginal utility is less, that is 15. 65 minus 50 is 15. Okay. When the consumer has consumed the fourth unit of chocolate, the total utility is 75. That means what? 75 minus 65, the marginal utility is 10, and so on. As you can see over here, on the ninth unit of consumption, the total utility is 98. That means 98 minus 96. So the marginal utility is 2 utils. On the consumption of 10th unit of chocolate, there is no increase in the total utility. So consumer has reached to the saturation point. 98 minus 98. And when the consumer consumes the 11th unit of chocolate, there is a negative utility or fall in the utility, and the total utility reached from 98 to 94 utils. That means there is a fall in the utility, marginal utility. So this is 94 minus 98. So minus 4 utils. So what we have learned over here, that when a consumer consumes more unit of the same commodity, of the same goods or commodity continuously, the additional utility that is marginal utility that he derives keep on decreasing. Marginal utility can be zero. Marginal utility can be zero at a certain point of time. Marginal utility can also be negative. If consumer still continued consuming. Okay, I believe it is clear till over here. Let's see the law of diminishing marginal utility assumptions. Let's see the assumptions of this law. The first assumption is all the units of the commodity must be identical. Take notings. All the units of a commodity must be identical in size. That is, for example, if the size and quality of the second product, say for example mango, is superior than the first, the consumer may derive more utility from the second mango. From the second mango than from the first. The second assumption is the unit of goods must be standard. The units of goods must be standard. These units should not change and again. I'll quote an example over here. A cup of water, a bottle of cold drink. So these units must be standard. Supposingly, if you are giving someone a cup of water in the first time, for the second time, you should give the cup of water only. Let's see the third assumption. There should be no change in the taste during the process of consumption. See, if there would be a change in the taste and preferences of a consumer, that it might happen that they may find it more utility in that product. The next one, there must be continuity in consumption. So a consumer should, if consumer is eating mangoes, so he should eat first mango, then he should eat second mango, third mango, fourth mango. So continuity should be maintained. It should not happen that in the morning he is eating a mango, in the evening he is eating a mango. That the time period or the time duration is so long that his craving for mango increases, and because of this reason the utility would increase. The utility is measurable. There should be no change in the prices of substitute goods. There should be no change in the prices of substitute goods. And at last, the consumer should be rational. The consumer is rational while taking the consumption decisions. So this was all about the assumptions of law of diminishing marginal utility. So students, we had already seen this table 1. What we derived by these assumption and table 1, what we learned about the law of diminishing marginal utility, what the important relationship between the total utility and marginal utility. Let's see the relationship that we had learned by this table. The total utility rises as long as mu is positive, but it diminishes at diminishing rate because mu is diminishing. Total utility will increase as the marginal utility is positive, but at a diminishing rate, obviously, because mu is diminishing. Marginal utility diminishes throughout. At a certain point of time, it will become zero and it could also become negative. So the marginal utility is zero. The total utility is maximum. This is the saturation point. Just see it over here. In this example, at 10th unit of consumption of chocolate, the marginal utility is 0 and total utility is maximum, that is 98. After this unit, that is the 11th unit of consumption of chocolate, there is a negative marginal utility and there is a decrease in the total utility. So when marginal utility is negative, -4, the total utility is diminishing and it became 94 from 98. mu, that is marginal utility, is the rate of change of total utility, or the slope of total utility. Mu could be positive, it could be 0 and even negative. This is also possible. Let's see this relationship now in a graphical presentation. Just see it over here. So this is the quantity of chocolates is plotted on the x-axis. On y-axis, the utility is shown over here. So negative utility minus 10, 0, 10, 20, 30. Over here the quantity of chocolates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. So when the consumer was having first chocolate, he attained 30 utilities. Second chocolate, he achieved 20 utility. 30 plus 20, 50 is the total utility. And this is the marginal utility. On third unit of consumption of chocolate, the utility was in between 10 and 20 somewhere. And accordingly the utility goes on further. This is the way the marginal utility is presented in a graphical form. Graphical presentation of marginal utility. So as will be seen from this figure, the marginal utility curve goes on declining throughout. The diminishing marginal utility curve applies to almost all the commodities. A few exceptions are there, have been pointed out by some of the economists. According to them, the law does not apply to money, music, and hobbies. Students, while this may be true in the initial stages, but beyond at a certain point of time, at a certain limit, these will also be subject to diminishing utility. So it may happen that the marginal utility of money is constant or but at a certain point of time, when you have it in abundance, after that the utility of money also start decreasing. But over here, just stick to this. The law of diminishing marginal utility helps us to understand how a consumer reaches equilibrium in case of single good. It states that as the quantity of goods with the consumer increases, the marginal utility of that good decreases. In other words, the marginal utility curve slope downward. Now a consumer will go on buying a good till the marginal utility of the good becomes either equal to the market price, because that is where he will be achieving the maximum satisfaction. If the marginal utility will be less from the market price, in that case the consumer will not be able to buy the product. In other words, the consumer will be in equilibrium in respect of the quantity of the goods when the marginal utility of the goods equals to the price. Here the satisfaction level will be the maximum. What happens when there is a change in the price of a good? The equality between the marginal utility and price is disturbed, because when the price of a goods falls, the consumer will consume more of the good so as to restore the equality between the marginal utility and the price. The marginal utility from the good will fall when we consume more of that good. He will continue consuming more till the marginal utility becomes equal to or lower than its price. On the other hand, when price of the good increases, he will buy less, so to equate the marginal utility to the higher price. We can say that the downward sloping curve is directly derived from the marginal utility curve. In reality, a consumer spends his income on more than one good. So in such a case, consumer equilibrium is explained with the law of equimarginal utility. According to this law, the consumer will be in equilibrium when he spends his money on goods and services in such a way that the marginal utility on each good is proportional to its price, and the last rupee spent on each commodity yields him equimarginal utility, equal marginal utility. The law states that the consumer is said to be at equilibrium. The following condition should be met, that is MUX, marginal utility from good X, price of X, equal to marginal utility from goods Y divided by price of Y. You can also write this as MUX, marginal utility from X divided by marginal utility from Y, equal to price of X upon price of Y. Okay, so we'll keep this lecture till here only. Thank you.